Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Space Engineers plus me, episode 5. I'm Enigmaeus, and today we've got a couple of things on the go. We're going to show you what we've been doing in our base. We've got a couple more things set up, very important things, and then we're going to go down and take a look at the quarry that we've been working on. If you're familiar with the Minecraft quarry term, it's nothing like that, not yet anyways, but for the time being, to hopefully get us up and running and find some materials that we need to continue expanding our base. It should be a reasonable start, I hope. So we're on the main level of our base. Not much has changed. You might see a little bit of extra conveyor action coming down this way. That's going to the area underneath, which is where the majority of the change has taken place. You can see we've got all kinds of goodies. In the last episode we had what? We had the med bay and the refinery. We've added an assembler and a super jumbo hydrogen tank, which is kind of very important when we're talking about having an outpost or a base on the top of a mountain, and we want to be able to smooth transit up and down that mountain. It's nice to have hydrogen on hand so that you can fill your jetpack with hydrogen, and once we have the materials to make them, we can make some empty hydrogen tanks and then fill those as well so that we can carry those around as a reserve. And it should make getting around much easier. The assembler is used for making the things that you didn't realize you needed to make until you thought about it. You can take a look here. Production. So all the things that we've been using, all the things that we got as salvaged materials from our lander and that were in the container storage on the lander, things like girders and computers and construction components, all the way down to steel plates, solar cells, you name it. If we had it or have had it at any time on this planet, generally we can make the components to make it, almost all, right from this menu here. And even things that we didn't have. Superconductor conduits, we haven't done anything with those. We haven't found any of those. Thruster components, I don't think we ever had any of those. So whatever we need to make, this is what we make it with. And in order to make it, we use the materials that we get from the refinery, which in most cases are going to come from the ore that we're going to be gathering from our quarry. Now, it's a little bit stuttery today. It's been getting progressively worse. And I don't know if it's because of things that I've built, or if it's going through the motions and it's doing its thing. So if you're wondering why it's so stuttery and why I'm tolerating it, it's because it's early access and it's doing what it's going to do, but it's still playable for me. We'll get through it and then it'll be better, and we'll look back on this and say, haha, remember when? Now, one of the things that I realized is that once I'm down here, it's sometimes quite difficult to get back up to the surface level, so I had to make sure that I dug out a bit of a route that we can take. We can come around here, and you can see just how close I came to actually ruining it in the process of cleaning things up to put more stuff in. See that? That's my platform to get across. It used to be much wider, and I almost obviously destroyed it. But we come across like that, and then we go up, and then wind up outside of our base. Now we're getting ready to put we'll call it a communication suite on the back side of our solar panel framework, I guess you could call it. That's what these two blocks are here, is the beginnings of that. I started doing it, then I realized I needed more materials, so the quarry took precedence over it. But the whole idea is things like beacons and better radios, and I don't know if it would be worth necessarily putting an ore detector up here as opposed to putting one down in the quarry, but I kind of get the idea that there's going to be a lot of blocks that we're going to want to place that are done for the nature of gathering information and communicating. So it seemed like a good idea. And then like I say, the quarry became the priority. Now you can actually see the quarry. Here we go with the stutter again. Right there. That's our quarry. It's, well, you'll see it when we get down there. We're not necessarily going to make you watch the whole trip down there because it's a little bit time consuming, but it's all the way down there. I wanted it down as low as I felt like going. I could have really put it down in that valley right over here, which is probably, I think, some of the lowest points that I would have the opportunity to use. If we go for a while in this location and it looks like it's a dud, then we might relocate to this area over here, see about getting an ore detector to help us out with the process. But we don't really have a lot of materials to be making vehicles or anything like that. And I'm not so sure I want to relocate my my nuclear reactor to a quarry just to run an ore detector. I'm not 100% convinced that that's the way I want to go, but we'll see. I mean, we're early in the process. We have abundant access to the things that we absolutely need. So everything else is kind of the nice to have category for future growth. Now, this is one of those kinds of slopes where if you take a little too fast, a little bit too careless, you start to bounce. And you'll bounce once and it kind of throws you a little bit farther than you thought you'd go, and then you bounce again and it throws you farther still, and then you die. That's the end of the entire process. Is here we go, bouncing. Oh, good. We just went for the one bounce there. I've had it happen where the bouncing went completely out of control, and I ended up basically bouncing off the side of the mountain right down into the valley. That was death. That was guaranteed death. Which is again another reason why it's so important to have hydrogen in our jetpack, because if we do encounter that situation, we can turn on the jetpack and the inertial dampeners and save ourselves without having to worry too much about the impact, the landing, so to speak. Here we go. Oh, see, now that I've got the jetpack, it's cooperating. But the key is to just not get moving too quickly. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we'll just skip all this BS. See how it tried to shut off on me there? No reason whatsoever. It tries to kick off. And I say to myself, why is it doing that? Previously, I would I would attribute it to running out of hydrogen, but now I know that's not the case, because that was the first time that I had used the hydrogen. You heard me turn on the jetpack, and you saw how short of a distance I went before it cut out. It's one of those things. It's hard to say. Now, one of the things that has occurred to me is that when we're messing around with toggling jetpacks and inertial dampeners around the same time, maybe there's a bit of a miskey in there. Maybe there's a bit of a meant to hit Z but hit X instead kind of scenario. So I've been careful about that. I don't think it's really had much of an impact on the outcome. Now, of course, as is the case with virtually everything in this game, as soon as I think about leaving the base, the sun goes down. Alright, so after a mostly uneventful trip down the mountain, we're approaching our quarry, which is a little bit different, I think. You can see we've got the frames from light armor blocks, but we didn't bother welding them up using all the materials. That's because each one of these frame blocks requires one steel plate. If I want to weld it up into a full light armor block, it requires a total of 25 steel plates. So in the interest of saving materials, I just used all the basic frames. And the purpose of these frames is to set a perimeter for the quarry so that we can start digging and actually see something that keeps us moving in a straight kind of line, or a relatively straight line. It's unfortunate that the sun's decided to go down when they did, but you can kind of see with just the helmet light that we've got a fairly large area laid out. It's 20 by 20 blocks total, which leaves us an inside perimeter of 18 by 18, and I've already started the process of digging it out. We'll kind of move our way down this way. You have to be a little bit careful because it is deep around the outer edges. We cut deep. We haven't hit anything useful yet, but we've definitely cut it pretty deep. That used to be the surface up there where that is, and then now the bottom starts there, and it goes all the way down here, and then it goes across, and then back up that way, and then over. It's working kind of well in terms of that. There's a little bit of an issue with digging. And I don't know exactly what triggers it, but the game likes to crash a little bit when you do a lot of digging. So I was thinking of doing like a time lapse of this prospecting dig that we were doing so that we can get an idea of what things look like over a period of time. But with the the little bit of a crash thing, I'm not so sure that would be a good idea to hang my hopes on. You can see down here again, we've cut pretty deep coming down this way. And just the whole idea of this framework was first and foremost to help us keep sort of straight lines as we were digging. And as you can see, it's been largely successful. We've got a few little bits here that kind of overhang, and if it was really important to us, we can, clean up some of them. But realistically speaking, in terms of straight lines cut in the middle of nowhere, that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. Very, very much an engineer-like thing is to give us sort of a guide and use that to keep things lined up nicely. Now, the other benefit, potentially in the future, is that if this does turn out to be a successful mining operation in this particular location, is we may want to start building out a little bit of a tiny outpost attached to this framework, and in that case, it's basically already there waiting for us. We don't have to do too much, and we can also use this framework as the beginnings of stairs or a ramp or something to get down into the quarry and then back out of it as well. Because right now, if we get too much deeper, we're going to have issues with getting out without having to make special arrangements in order to get over across the gap between the outside and the inside that we've been diligently working away at. So I'm kind of curious, if we just kind of go straight in, are we going to find anything fun? We're looking for basically any kind of change in color from the stone that we're digging through now to anything else. It's the only way to describe it. We'll take anything other than what we see directly in front of us. One of the things that I've learned, as you can tell, is that if you just pulse the mouse button, you just kind of hit it and let go, it'll do the demolition bit immediately as soon as you hit it, and you don't have to listen to the jackhammer. That, nobody really wants to listen to that all day. You just give it a little bit of a pulse, and then you step away, and you give a little bit of a pulse, then you step in. It goes fairly quickly, and I don't know if this is in some way related to the crashes that we've been experiencing, but I don't know. There's no way for me to find out. I just keep my eye out for patch notes that's saying a certain thing has been resolved, and then we check to see if it's been resolved or not. Now you can see it's not very straight. I mean, it's kind of straight. It's straight in sections, but in terms of drawing straight lines, that doesn't qualify at all. It's very, very tricky to get a straight line without a guide to follow. And I noticed this when we were on that first world that gave us the big base full of materials and ammunition and all those things. I tried doing the beginnings of a quarry kind of setup where we were going to do like a square on the ground and then dig out the inside of the square and dig down around the perimeter of the square. And it was kind of eye-opening when you do what you think is a pair of straight lines connecting at a 90-degree angle, and then you step back and look at them and it's more like a half circle. That's when you realize that maybe if having things done straight is important to you, you're going to need a little help. So we basically cut through a portion of this guy here, and we didn't find anything other than stone. There's a chunk of ice there that we might grab and take up to the top with us when we go next, just because, assuming we haven't found anything that we filled our inventory with in its place. Let's just kind of go like this. So I've got a few options. I can take my nuclear reactor and bring it down here, and I think I should have enough materials to make an ore detector and just kind of set things up and try and detect some ore and use that as the basis, the starting point for our prospecting adventures. Or I can just keep digging, this area here, just keep digging it out. I'm not necessarily interested in clearing out the whole thing so it's a big empty square shaft starting at the surface and going as far down as we can stand it before we relocate to somewhere else. or we can just kind of go a little bit mobile and see what we can find in the area and start maybe take a few shortcuts to gathering some of the materials that we need. Either or. I'm going to mess around with it over the next couple of days, see what seems to be working. We may have just taken a big square gouge out of the planet for no reason whatsoever, which is probably not going to suit the average environmentalist amongst our crew of one. Fortunately, there's fewer than one environmentalists amongst our crew, so we should be okay. The next episode, we'll have some sort of minerals to show you, where we're getting the minerals from, what we're doing with the minerals, how our base has evolved or not, depending on how things go. And the easiest way to be notified when I add that video is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media are always in the information box below the video. Please leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.